Mr. Chairman, ranking members and congressmen, thank you. I'm happy to be here. This is an important issue, and I'm grateful for your time. My name is David Charles Grush. I was an intelligence officer for 14 years.
In July 2023, a bombshell congressional hearing made waves around the world.
I was informed in the course of my official duties of a multi-decade UAP crash retrieval and reverse engineering program.
But one investigative journalist has been sounding the alarm on UFO secrets for decades.
I think it is a hugely significant moment, and I never thought I would see it in my lifetime.
George Knapp joins us now with UFOs, the best evidence. George?
There are many unanswered questions about UFOs. Speculation about some long-standing government cover-up is tough for many people to swallow. You got photos, you got movie footage, you got video. There is some kind of a phenomenon here that can't just be written off.
I've always approached it as a news story. It's not my religion. It's not a belief. I don't know what to believe even now.
Now News Nation is bringing you unprecedented access to the files of George Knapp.
I have secret stashes of files and things all over the station.
Mountains of evidence compiled from the government's own files.
No one who knew Area 51 from the inside ever talked publicly.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers.
They have between 30 and 50 alien bodies.
The government has been telling us for years that they're not real.
And how his life's work still influences the conversations on UFOs.
If it is true, it would be the biggest story in history. 36 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out.
We're in Vegas, we're on the Strip, we're on our way to meet George. He's finally agreed to meet with us. It took a long time because he's very busy. He says he gets multiple interview requests per day, but he's finally going to sit down with us at the TV station where he's worked for decades.
So this has been my office, amazingly. They've let me keep it all these years. And I have secret stashes of files and things all over the station because I'm a pack rat. I keep everything. This is where a lot of the stories that we did were created. All these things that have come out over the last couple of years started right here.
What brought you to Vegas?
I flipped a coin. I was living in Northern California. I had been the debate coach at UC Berkeley. I was tired of being broke. You know, I knew I had to do something. And I met these crazy bartenders from Las Vegas. And they told me about the town. They said, hey, you can write, you're a speaker. We know a guy in television, you can get a job there. So I moved here. We've done so many stories. You know, when I moved to Las Vegas, I didn't know there was an Area 51. I didn't know there was a Nevada test site, the most nuked place in the world. This is the center, the heart of the nuclear testing, where all these big holes, that's caused by nuclear bombs. And those bombs became tourist attractions by themselves. But all those brainiacs and scientists and engineers who amassed in Las Vegas at the same time the mob was here and showgirls, it was a really interesting historical time.
The wide variety and array of top-name entertainment is really what sets Las Vegas apart from anywhere else.
I met this bartender who was a mob guy. And he says, you want to drive a cab? So I was the worst cab driver in the history of the world. I didn't know where anything was. And during the same time, KLVX hired me as a part-time production assistant. And at night when I finished the cab driving shift, I'd go over to this nightclub, which was called the Oz, and all the mob guys were there. All the mob guys from the movie Casino would be there on a regular basis. And I got to know them. Back to KLVX, I would toil there, do whatever jobs they asked. About 2 months later, their anchorman quit, and they had open auditions to be the anchor of their newscast. I applied and I got it, and suddenly, less than a year in Las Vegas, I'm anchoring 2 newscasts. It was crazy. Could never happen again. And within a year of doing that, KLAS, Bob Stoddall, and a guy named Ned Day took notice of me, invited me to come over, and I've been here ever since. And in those days, we all did mob stories.
Like it or not, organized crime is part of our city's heritage. Mob money and mafia muscle put Las Vegas on the map.
There was so much going on. Every day was a bust, a gaming control board hearing, a trial. There was always something going on because it was the start of the push to get rid of them.
The City Commission has issued an emergency order pursuant to Nevada law, effective immediately upon service, suspending the license of the Aladdin Hotel.
And of course, because I already knew these guys, I not only had access to law enforcement, but I could talk to the mob guys. And it was really helpful to me in those formative days.
Again, like before the internet was big, I mean, was it all just files and paper?
Sure. These are mostly crime stories, cold case murder.
Would you do a file for every story, or what was your system?
Yeah.
People would mail you stuff, or I mean?
People would mail me stuff almost every day. People send me little stuff that make me homemade saucers out of tin foil. That's the stickers we hadn't made up when Mystery Wire was first created, my craggy old face there. This was sort of my little nerve center for a long time.
So you were a popular news anchor, popular investigative reporter. How did this UFO thing suddenly come into your life?
It was really a quirk. Ned Day and Bob Stoddall had broken a really big national story. They had information about a secret plane out in the Nevada desert, and it was invisible to radar. That's what our sources had said.
George Knapp's source was this man, John Lear, famed aviator, son of the founder of the Learjet, and soon to be influential in the conversation on UFOs.
Thanks for being here.
Okay, George.
To begin with, you're a pilot, an airline pilot, captain. You have held 17 different world speed records at one time or another. You're a member of the famous Lear family that all Nevadans are pretty much familiar with.
His father had developed the Learjet, and he had a passion for secret planes. So he and a group of people, they called them the interceptors, would go out into the Nevada desert and would sit outside of Area 51, the Nevada test site, to see what was flying around in the sky.
You don't sound like the kind of guy who would get hooked up in something that a lot of people would say is a bunch of nonsense.
No, it's just by coincidence that I got really interested. This about 2 years ago. My father saw a UFO and my brother did.
And one day, John Lear walks into the news station, this is in 1987, with a stack of documents, UFO documents, and he plops them on Ned Day's desk, and he says, Ned, this is the biggest story you will ever cover in your life. It's about a cover-up of massive proportions. You're going to become famous. You got to do this story. He pushes the documents over, and Ned starts reading them, and he pushes the pile back, and he tells Lear, this can't be true. If this was true, this UFO cover-up, then I'd already know about it, he says. I'm eavesdropping, as I tend to do. And I said, Mr. Lear, let me take a look at that stuff. So I read through it, and at the time I produced a little talk show, a half-hour public affairs show called On the Record.
Hello and welcome to On the Record.
And it would air on Saturday or Sunday morning at 6 or 7 o'clock. And I said, John, you want to do this show? And I put him on, and I just let him go.
I'll give you the bottom line.
Okay,
I'm not trying to sell it.
I want to hear your thesis.
I'm not trying to sell a book. I'm not trying to promote a lecture. This is based on what I've come across after intense research in the last year. And I have found out that the government has retrieved between 10 and 15 actual flying saucers, 3 of which have been in perfect condition, 1 of which they tried to fly. They have between 30 and 50 alien bodies in cryogenic storage. We even have the name of the person whose job it is to show these bodies to the heads of state and the people who are authorized to see them. They represent at least 5 different civilizations.
Okay, you mentioned the saucers and the bodies. Now, what kind of proof do you have that is true? How do you know that?
Well, let me take a look. Let me read to you first what the Air Force says about the bodies. First of all, I'm going to read from the Introductory Space Science, Volume 2, Department of Physics, United States Air Force. This is Chapter 13, Unidentified Flying Objects. Now, this is what the Air Force has the students at the Air Force Academy read. And it says, the most commonly described alien is about 3.5 feet tall, has a round head, arms reaching to or below his knees, and is wearing a silvery spacesuit or coveralls.
It blew me away. It blew away our audience. I didn't know what to make of it, really. And looking back on the tape of that show, I can see the expressions on my face. Is this for real?
Yeah.
This guy making this stuff up? He's nuts.
Coming up.